The faint hum of the dropship's engines was the only sound Logan Hawk Watson could hear as he gripped the harness straps across his chest. He stared at the dim green light above the bay door, waiting for it to change. His fingers twitched reflexively near the rifle strapped to his side. A sniper didn't typically need adrenaline, but tonight, it coursed through him like a second heartbeat. This wasn't just another mission. It was his first in a decade, and humanity's survival depended on its success. Beside him, a low growl broke through the quiet. Bruno, his Rottweiler companion, sat rigid, his dark eyes scanning the small space as though he understood the weight of their task. Logan glanced at the dog and smirked. "You nervous, buddy? Don't worry. I hear these aliens are big on monologues. We'll probably get an hour's head start while they talk about why they hate us." Bruno let out a soft huff, as if in agreement. Logan reached down to scratch behind his ear. "You're my only backup, Bruno. Don't go turning into a hero, all right? That's my job." The green light blinked red, and the bay door hissed open. The cold wind of the alien planet whipped through the cabin, carrying with it the metallic tang of a place utterly foreign. Below, the dark terrain stretched endlessly, jagged mountains clawing at the sky like broken teeth. Somewhere in that labyrinth of rock and shadow was General Krelter Vok, the Larzathian warlord who had made it his mission to wipe out humanity. And Logan? He was the bullet with Vok's name on it. "Jump in 5. The pilot's voice crackled over the comm. "Good luck down there, Watson. You're gonna need it." "Thanks for the pep talk," Logan muttered. He unbuckled his harness, adjusted his gear, and crouched near the edge. Bruno was already at his side, his tail wagging in what could only be described as canine enthusiasm. Logan chuckled under his breath. "You're the only creature I know who'd be excited about parachuting into an alien death trap." The countdown reached 0, and they leaped into the void. The descent was a rush of wind and gravity, the planet's surface rushing up to meet them. Logan adjusted his chute with practiced ease, steering them toward the shadows of the mountain range. The ground came up fast, but his landing was smooth, a testament to years of muscle memory. Bruno landed moments later, his harness disengaging automatically. The dog shook himself and immediately began sniffing the air. Logan crouched low, his sniper rifle already in his hands. "All right, Bruno, let's move. Keep your nose sharp." The two moved silently through the rocky terrain, shadows their only cover. The Larzathians weren't a subtle species. Their footprints were gouged into the dirt like scars, and the faint glow of their bioluminescent tech lit the horizon like a distant storm. Logan checked his watch. If his intel was correct, Krelter's stronghold was roughly 2 clicks west. They hadn't gone far when Bruno stopped abruptly, his ears perking up. Logan froze, scanning the area through his rifle's scope. The terrain appeared empty at first glance, but a faint shimmer near a boulder caught his eye. Cloaking tech. He smirked. "Nice try, big guy." He adjusted his aim, exhaled slowly, and pulled the trigger. The silenced shot cracked the air, and the shimmer collapsed, revealing a Larzathian scout crumpling to the ground. "First blood," Logan muttered. "Hope you're watching, Krelter." Bruno wagged his tail and trotted over to sniff the fallen alien. Logan tugged the dog back. "Not a chew toy, Bruno. Focus." They pressed on, the atmosphere growing heavier with tension. Logan's thoughts drifted as they moved. He hadn't set foot on a battlefield since the last war, and while his body still moved like a machine, his mind wasn't so sure. He thought about his old squad, men who'd trusted him, who'd followed him into hell and never made it back. He didn't talk about them, not even to himself, but tonight their faces lingered in his mind's eye. The sound of distant voices snapped him back to the present. He signaled Bruno to stay low and crept forward, his rifle raised. 2 Larzathians stood near a ridge, their guttural language grating on his ears. One of them laughed, a deep, mocking sound that made Logan's jaw tighten. He didn't need a translator to guess the gist of their conversation. Probably something about how weak and pitiful humans were. Logan's finger hovered over the trigger, but he hesitated. He could take them both out, but the noise might draw attention. Instead, he motioned for Bruno. The dog slinked forward, silent as a shadow, until he was just behind the closest alien. Then, with a blur of motion, Bruno lunged, his powerful jaws clamping down on the alien's leg. The Larzathian howled in pain, drawing his companion's attention. Exactly as planned. Logan's shot was clean, the second alien dropping before he could react. Bruno finished his work with a vicious efficiency that made Logan wince. "Good boy," Logan said, kneeling to pat the dog's head. "But maybe tone it down a notch. We don't want them thinking we're savages." They moved quickly after that, knowing the bodies would be found sooner or later. The ridge gave way to a narrow canyon, the perfect place for an ambush. Logan's eyes darted to every shadow, every crevice. Bruno's ears twitched constantly, his nose low to the ground. When the first shot came, it was almost too late. A beam of blue energy sizzled past Logan's head, slamming into the rock behind him. He dove for cover, his heart pounding. Bruno barked a sharp, urgent sound before darting to safety himself. Logan peeked out and spotted the shooter, a Larzathian sniper perched high on a ledge. "Cute," he muttered, adjusting his scope. The alien was good, but Logan was better. One shot later, the sniper was nothing more than a smear on the rock. The silence that followed was deafening. Logan stayed low, scanning the area for any more threats. Satisfied they were alone, he exhaled slowly and looked at Bruno. "You okay?" The dog tilted his head, as if to say, "Of course I am. What about you?" Logan laughed softly. "I knew I should have retired somewhere warm. A beach, maybe. You look great chasing a ball on the sand, Bruno." The dog barked once, his tail wagging. Logan's smile faded as his gaze turned west. The mountain's stronghold loomed in the distance, its outline barely visible against the dark sky. He checked his watch again. Time was running out. "All right, partner," he said, standing and slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "Let's go meet the big bad alien. Maybe he'll have some tea ready for us." They moved into the night, the weight of their mission pressing down with every step. "What do you think, buddy? Alien War secrets or last week's lunch order?" Bruno tilted his head, his brown eyes scrutinizing the chip as if pondering the question. Logan chuckled. "Right, probably both. Let's find out later." He pocketed the chip, his mind already racing with possibilities. If Crowther's plans were on this, he might have a shot at stopping that genocidal maniac before it was too late. The night was eerily silent as they moved through the canyon. Logan's boots crunched softly on the gravel, every sound magnified by the oppressive quiet. Bruno padded alongside him, his head low, ears twitching at the faintest rustle. Logan felt a twinge of envy for the dog's instincts. Bruno didn't overthink things. He didn't carry the weight of memories that refused to fade. Logan's thoughts drifted unbidden to the last time he'd been on a battlefield. His squad, his brothers, had trusted him with their lives, and he'd let them down. The image of their faces, frozen in disbelief as the ambush closed in, was a scar he couldn't shake. He'd sworn that was the end, that he'd never pick up a rifle again. Yet here he was, trudging through an alien wasteland, chasing a warlord who saw humans as nothing more than vermin. "Funny how life works, huh?" he muttered under his breath. Bruno glanced up at him, his tail giving a brief wag as if to say, "You talk too much." The canyon walls began to narrow, and Logan's grip on his rifle tightened. It was the perfect spot for an ambush, and he'd walked into enough of them to know the signs. He scanned the rocky outcrops above, his eyes flicking to every shadow, every potential sniper's perch. Bruno froze, his body going rigid. Logan dropped to one knee, following the dog's gaze. Ahead, a faint orange glow flickered in the darkness. Logan adjusted his scope and peered through it. 3 Larzathians were gathered around a makeshift campfire, their guttural voices carrying on the wind. One of them was gesturing animatedly, its clawed hands sweeping through the air as it spoke. Logan couldn't understand the language, but he didn't need to. The tone was unmistakable, mocking, condescending. They were laughing, probably about humans. Logan felt a surge of anger rise in his chest, but he forced it down. Emotions didn't win battles. Precision did. He motioned for Bruno to stay put and began circling around the camp, moving from shadow to shadow with the ease of a man who'd spent more time in the field than out of it. The wind shifted, carrying the aliens' voices more clearly. "Pathetic creatures," one of them growled. "They think they can resist us. They think they matter." Logan's lip curled. He took aim, his finger resting lightly on the trigger. The shot was perfect. Center mass, no chance of survival. But he hesitated. A clean kill would draw attention. He needed to do this quietly. Bruno, apparently sensing his thoughts, took matters into his own paws. The dog slinked forward, his body low to the ground. Logan watched, his heart pounding as Bruno closed the distance. The dog's movements were a thing of beauty. Silent, deliberate, lethal. The first Larzathian didn't even see him coming. Bruno lunged, his jaws clamping down on the alien's arm with a ferocity that made Logan wince. The alien let out a choked cry, its companions scrambling to react. Logan didn't give them the chance. 2 shots, 2 bodies hitting the dirt. Bruno released his grip, his tail wagging as he trotted back to Logan. The dog's face was smeared with alien blood, and he looked far too pleased with himself. "Show off," Logan muttered, giving the dog a pat on the head. "You're making me look bad." They moved quickly after that, knowing the campfire would attract attention. Logan's mind was racing, trying to piece together a plan. The mountain's stronghold loomed in the distance, its silhouette jagged and foreboding. If Kreltha was holed up in there, and every piece of intel said he was, then getting to him would be a nightmare. The place was a fortress, bristling with Larzathian soldiers and defenses. A frontal assault was suicide, but stealth had its own risks. Bruno barked softly, drawing Logan's attention. The dog was sniffing at a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. Logan crouched beside him, peering into the darkness. It was a tunnel, just wide enough for a man to squeeze through. "Good find," Logan said, ruffling Bruno's ears. "Let's hope it doesn't lead to a dead end. Or a nest." The tunnel was cramped and smelled like damp stone and decay. Logan moved cautiously, his rifle held at the ready. Bruno stayed close, his nose twitching constantly. The air grew colder as they descended, the walls slick with moisture. Logan's instincts screamed at him to turn back, but he pushed on. Every second wasted was a second closer to Kreltha launching his attack. When they emerged, it was into a small cavern lit by a faint bioluminescent glow. Logan froze, his eyes scanning the space. There were no Larzathians, but something else caught his attention, a terminal, glowing faintly in the corner. He approached it cautiously, his fingers brushing against the keypad. The screen flickered to life, displaying a map of the stronghold. Logan's heart leapt. This was it, a layout of Kreltha's base, complete with patrol routes and weak points. It was a gold mine. Bruno barked softly, his ears pinning back. Logan's blood ran cold. The dog only did that when danger was close. He spun around just in time to see a Larzathian soldier stepping into the cavern, its weapon raised. "Clever humans," it hissed. But not clever enough. Logan's shot was instinctive, the bullet finding its mark between the alien's eyes. The soldier crumpled, its weapon clattering to the ground. Logan's hands were shaking as he turned back to the terminal. He downloaded the map onto the data chip, his mind racing. They needed to move, and fast. He motioned for Bruno, who was already at the cavern's exit, his body tense. Logan followed, his grip on the rifle so tight his knuckles ached. When they stepped out into the night, the mountain stronghold was closer than ever, its lights cutting through the darkness like eyes watching their every move. Logan took a deep breath, his gaze shifting to Bruno. Hope you're ready, partner, he said quietly. This is gonna get messy. Bruno wagged his tail, his expression calm and resolute. Logan allowed himself a small smile. Whatever came next, at least he wouldn't face it alone. The ground beneath Logan's boots was rough, the jagged terrain forcing him to move cautiously. The mountain loomed closer now, its stronghold hidden in the shadows of the night. The faint hum of alien machinery was carried on the wind, a grim reminder of the forces that lay ahead. Bruno trotted by his side, his nose low to the ground, sniffing for threats. The dog's quiet presence was a comfort, even as the tension in Logan's chest tightened. "All right, Bruno," Logan whispered, crouching near a cluster of rocks. "We're in the lion's den now. Let's try not to get eaten." Bruno responded with a soft snort, and Logan smirked despite himself. Humor, no matter how dry, was the only thing keeping his nerves in check. He pulled the map he'd downloaded from the alien terminal and studied it under the dim light of his wrist display. The stronghold's outer defenses were marked with precision: automated turrets, patrol routes, and energy barriers. The path ahead was anything but welcoming. "Piece of cake," Logan muttered sarcastically. "All we have to do is get past an entire alien army, sneak into their base, and kill their leader. Simple, right?" Bruno barked softly, his tail wagging as if to agree. Logan chuckled. "Glad one of us is optimistic." The first obstacle was a series of automated turrets, their sleek, alien designs glowing faintly in the dark. They scanned the area methodically, their targeting systems emitting a faint hum. Logan surveyed the layout through his scope, noting the patterns. The turrets were smart, but they weren't infallible. He just needed to be smarter. He reached into his pack and pulled out a small EMP device, a relic from his days in the field. Holding it up for Bruno to see, he grinned. "You know, I always thought this thing was overkill. Turns out it's my new best friend." With careful precision, Logan crept forward, keeping to the shadows. Bruno followed silently, his movements almost imperceptible. When they were close enough, Logan activated the device and tossed it toward the nearest turret. The EMP exploded in a burst of blue light, and the turret's glow flickered before dying out. The others followed suit, their mechanical hum fading into silence. "See," Logan said, turning to Bruno, smarter than the average alien death trap. Bruno tilted his head, clearly unimpressed. They pressed on, weaving through the outer defenses with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. Logan's instincts, honed through years of experience, guided them through the maze of patrols and traps. Bruno's keen senses picked up on dangers before they could become threats. Together, they moved like shadows, silent and unseen. But the closer they got to the stronghold, the tighter Logan's chest felt. The weight of the mission bore down on him, a constant reminder of what was at stake. He couldn't afford to fail. Humanity couldn't afford for him to fail. As they approached the main gate, Logan paused, his eyes scanning the area. The gate was massive, its surface shimmering with an energy field that pulsed rhythmically. Guards patrolled the area, their weapons at the ready. Getting past them would be no easy feat. Logan leaned down to Bruno, his voice barely above a whisper. "All right, buddy, here's the plan. I take out the guards, and you distract them if things go south." "Sound good." Bruno's wagging tail was all the confirmation Logan needed. Logan took a deep breath, steadying his aim. His first shot was silent and precise, dropping a guard before the others could react. The second followed moments later, and then the third. The guards fell in quick succession, their bodies crumpling silently to the ground. For a moment, it seemed like the plan had worked. But then, a blaring alarm shattered the silence, its piercing wail echoing through the canyon. Logan's heart sank. So much for stealth. "Time to move," he barked, grabbing Bruno's harness. They sprinted toward the gate, the sound of alien shouts and approaching footsteps growing louder behind them. Logan's mind raced as he pulled another device from his pack, this one designed to disrupt the energy field. As he worked, Bruno growled, his teeth bared at the approaching enemies. Logan glanced over his shoulder and saw a squad of Larzathians closing in, their weapons raised. He gritted his teeth and focused on the device, his fingers moving with practiced precision. Come on, he muttered, sweat dripping down his face. The device beeped, and the energy field flickered before vanishing. Logan didn't hesitate. He grabbed Bruno and dove through the gate just as the first shots rang out. The energy field reactivated behind them, cutting off their pursuers. Logan lay on the ground, breathing heavily. Bruno licked his face, and he laughed weakly. Yeah, I'm fine. Thanks for asking. They didn't have time to rest. The alarm meant the entire stronghold would be on high alert. Logan pulled himself to his feet, his eyes scanning the dimly lit corridor ahead. The map indicated a service tunnel that would lead them closer to Krelter's command center. It was their best shot. The tunnel was narrow and filled with the faint hum of alien machinery. The air was heavy, and Logan's every step felt like it echoed too loudly. Bruno stayed close, his body tense and alert. Halfway through the tunnel, Logan froze. Something felt off. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, and Bruno's low growl confirmed his instincts. He raised his rifle, his eyes scanning the shadows. Come on, show yourself, he muttered. The attack came from above. A massive Larzathian warrior dropped from the ceiling, its claws slashing through the air. Logan barely had time to react, throwing himself to the side as the creature landed where he'd been standing. Bruno lunged at the alien, his teeth sinking into its arm. Logan rolled to his feet and fired, the shot hitting the Larzathian square in the chest. The creature roared and swung its arm, throwing Bruno to the ground. Logan's heart skipped a beat as he aimed again, this time going for the head. The shot was clean, and the alien collapsed in a heap. He rushed to Bruno's side, his hands shaking as he checked the dog for injuries. You okay, buddy? Bruno wagged his tail weakly, licking Logan's hand. Relief flooded through him, and he let out a shaky laugh. You're tougher than you look. You know that? They pressed on, the tension between them unspoken but understood. Every step brought them closer to the command center, and every step felt heavier than the last. Logan's mind raced with plans and contingencies, but none of them felt good enough. He was improvising, and that scared him more than he cared to admit. When they finally reached the end of the tunnel, Logan paused, his eyes narrowing at the door ahead. Beyond it lay Krelter's command center, the heart of the stronghold. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He looked at Bruno and gave a small nod. This is it. No turning back now. Bruno barked softly, his eyes steady and unwavering. Logan took a deep breath and stepped forward, his rifle raised. The door slid open and the cold, sterile light of the command center spilled out. Whatever waited inside, Logan was ready. Or at least, he hoped he was. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing the vast expanse of the command center. Logan's breath caught for a moment as he took in the scene. The room was enormous, filled with alien machinery that pulsed with an eerie blue light. At the center stood Krelter Vok, the towering Larzathian warlord, his imposing figure clad in sleek, black armor that seemed to absorb the light around him. His sharp, insectoid features twisted into a sneer as his glowing yellow eyes locked onto Logan. So, Krelter hissed, his voice a deep rumble that reverberated through the chamber. The humans send a single warrior to face me. How quaint. Logan stepped into the room, his rifle raised, his every muscle coiled like a spring. Bruno moved at his side, his growl low and steady. Quaint's just a fancy word for unexpected, Logan replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline surging through him. But don't worry, Krelter. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to finish you. Krelter chuckled, the sound grating and inhuman. You think one man and a pet can challenge the might of the Larzathian Empire? You humans are as delusional as you are weak. Logan's grip on his rifle tightened, but he forced himself to stay calm. Anger was a distraction he couldn't afford. He scanned the room, noting the positions of the guards flanking Krelther and the defensive drones hovering near the ceiling. It was a death trap, and he knew it. But he also knew he didn't have a choice. Before Krelther could continue his monologue, Logan fired. The shot rang out, a streak of light cutting through the air toward the warlord. But Krelther was fast, unnaturally fast. He moved with a fluid grace that belied his massive frame, and the shot struck harmlessly against the armor of a nearby guard. Bold, Krelther said, his tone mocking. But futile, the room erupted into chaos. The guards opened fire, their weapons emitting blasts of searing energy. Logan dove behind a console, his heart pounding as he returned fire. Bruno sprang into action, darting through the fray with lethal precision. The dog leaped onto one of the guards, his powerful jaws clamping down on its throat. The alien let out a strangled cry before collapsing. Logan focused on thinning the ranks, his shots precise and deadly. Each pull of the trigger was a calculated move, his mind working at a blistering pace. But the guards kept coming, and the drones joined the fray, their laser fire forcing him to stay pinned behind cover. "Bruno!" Logan called out, his voice sharp. The dog responded instantly, retreating to his side. Logan reached into his pack and pulled out a small explosive device. He armed it with a flick of his thumb and tossed it toward the drones. The explosion rocked the room, sending shrapnel and sparks flying. The drones fell from the air, their mechanical bodies crumpling like paper. Krelther watched the battle unfold with a detached amusement, his posture relaxed as if the chaos around him were a mere inconvenience. "You're a persistent human," he said, "but persistence without power is meaningless." Logan gritted his teeth and focused on clearing the last of the guards. Each shot felt heavier than the last, his muscles burning from the exertion. Bruno was at his side, his first singe but his spirit unbroken. Together, they fought like a single entity, their movements perfectly synchronized. Finally, the room fell silent. The guards were down, and the drones were nothing more than smoldering wreckage. Logan rose to his feet, his rifle trained on Krelther. Sweat dripped down his face, and his chest heaved with each breath. But his resolve was unshaken. "It's over, Krelther," he said, his voice cold. "You've lost." Krelther's laughter echoed through the chamber, a sound that sent a chill down Logan's spine. "Over," the warlord repeated. "You misunderstand, human. This has only just begun." With a flick of his wrist, Krelther activated a shield that shimmered around him like a second skin. He moved toward Logan with a deliberate, menacing stride, his claws clicking against the metal floor. Logan fired, but the bullets dissipated harmlessly against the shield. "Impressive toy," Logan muttered, retreating as Krelther advanced. "But I've seen better," Bruno growled, his body tense as he watched the alien approach. Logan's mind raced. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. His eyes darted to the machinery lining the walls, and an idea began to form. "Krelther," Logan shouted, his voice laced with mockery. "Is this all you've got? Hiding behind a shield? Guess even Larzathian warlords get scared." The taunt worked. Krelther snarled, his movements growing more aggressive. "You dare mock me?" he roared, his voice shaking the room. "I will crush you, human." Logan bolted toward the far end of the room, firing shots to keep Krelther's attention. Bruno followed, his claws scraping against the floor as he ran. The warlord pursued them, his shield absorbing every shot Logan fired. Reaching the console he'd spotted earlier, Logan began typing furiously, his fingers flying over the alien interface. It was a gamble. He barely understood the technology, but he didn't have time to second-guess himself. Krelther was almost upon him, his claws raised for the killing blow. At the last second, Logan hit a final key and dubbed to the side, dragging Bruno with him. The console erupted in a surge of energy, the overload sending a pulse through the room. Krelther's shield flickered, then collapsed, leaving him exposed. Logan didn't hesitate. He rolled to his feet, raised his rifle, and fired. The shot struck Krelther square in the chest, and the warlord let out a guttural roar. He staggered backward, his claws clutching at the wound, before collapsing to his knees. Logan approached cautiously, his rifle still trained on the alien. Crowther looked up at him, his glowing eyes dimming. "You think this changes anything?" he rasped. "Humanity will still fall." Logan stared down at him, his expression hard. "Not today." He pulled the trigger one last time, and Crowther fell silent. The room was eerily quiet as Logan lowered his rifle. He looked at Bruno, who was watching him with an expectant expression. "What?" Logan said, his voice tinged with exhaustion. "You want a medal?" Bruno wagged his tail, and Logan let out a tired laugh. He reached down to scratch behind the dog's ears. "Good job, buddy. Couldn't have done it without you." As they made their way out of the stronghold, Logan felt a strange sense of peace. The mission was over, but the fight for humanity's survival was far from finished. For now, though, he was content to walk into the night with his loyal companion by his side.